Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddy, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
Okay, we're on.
No me
We're
gusta.
live. Do it live. Oh, look at that crotch shot for everybody that's just now joined.
No,
Hey, you're eating the microphone again.
I was trying to move it
Tu
closer
es
so I
no
didn't have my crotch
guapo.
in the picture. But I want my fire in the background. I want you guys to,
tú es
want you
no
guys to see my fire
guapo.
back there.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to.
Because us Americans that live in the freedom states,
All right, you're eating it again.
I get to do what I want to do.
There you go. That's
I'm
much
zoned
better.
agricultural, sir. I burn. This is my trash burning.
I need a what's a
All
Ralphie
right,
sticker.
now we're live. We're doing it live. I don't have any. Dude, what's a Ralphie is fizzling, dude. The only thing that's keeping me alive is A, you guys, and B, everybody loves but first a beer.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but that's
Uh,
about it. That's about it. But I'll do social media
Yeah,
for
well, you
you
see
guys,
how
'cause
much
I
I
love
do.
you guys, and I love this podcast. So I'm serious. Otherwise, I'd probably starting to fade out because social media is
It
tough.
is.
It's just
It
you
is.
know I don't know.
And who knows
I don't
when it's all gonna
It's all
end
good.
one day.
It's all good.
Yeah,
That's right.
no.
Yeah.
What
I don't think
so
anytime
what
soon, but
is going on in your departments? What is the big talking points that are going on in your departments right now?
dude, we've got so much. So we talked before.
Transfers.
Whoa, Doug's alive. There he is. We talked before we hit record, and we were like, "What are we going to talk about? Let's talk about what's going on at the coffee table," because we got a really awesome comment this last week in our social media, and it was like, "I really enjoy your guys' podcast. You know, you guys are authentic," which I thought that was like a really cool word that he used. And he goes, "I really feel like I'm at the coffee table solving the world's problems," and I'm like.
Yeah, that's
God
that's
darn,
what we
'cause
tried
that's what
for.
we
That's
do around here.
You know, when we had this silly idea, we were like, what do we
Dude.
want it to be? And realistically, it just turned into our group text. But now we're looking at each other and just have our group text.
Two things.
Doug's got two things. First thing,
One, my mustache is coming in really nice. Real nice.
Yeah.
Two, when we had this discussion, I was like, we should change. We should have started this thing with the Average Fireman Podcast. Because what you're talking about, this will make sense in a minute. What you're talking about is it's just continue and it'll make sense in a minute with what the comment was.
what did you say that it was going to start out as? The what?
That we should have just named this thing like the Average Fireman Podcast.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah,
just
I know.
continue with what the comment was and it'll make sense in a minute and I'll elaborate later.
Yeah. And I mean, we've said it a million times. We don't need to say why the name is the Cool Fireman Podcast. It is what it is. That's kind of how our text thread started as a joke, and now it is what it is. So here we are, sitting around a virtual coffee table, talking shit and having fun.
So do
and,
you have that-
bringing up all
do you
kinds
have
of
that
different
comment, Matt?
conversations?
You want to read it?
So, I do.
Here,
It
I
was
found it.
basically thank you for your authenticity. It was posted on the
I love that word.
TikTok. The TikTok, I know, right?
Do you want the DM
authenticity.
or do you want
Authenticity.
the message, the comment?
Well, he sent, so I ended up sending him a direct message from my What's a Ralphie TikTok just saying, "Hey, I really appreciate your comment." And he was just super stoked that, you know, we weren't a beat your chest type firefighter podcast. And I mean, the five of us, you know, I mean, even when Nick was around, he's the same way. None of his TikToks or his social medias are like us doing this, like, "Oh, we bust through the biggest door." We always give Doug enough shit, you know, about him having his big department, but that's just for fun and games. I mean, that has nothing to do with
And that
us.
back to what I said earlier, like we should have named this thing the Average Fireman Podcast because we're not, every department has them. And again, not knocking those dudes, by all means, do you, boo boo. But not every fireman, the majority of firemen are going to come to work. They're going to give you everything they got while they're at work. And then when they get off, they have life. My life for the last few days has been doing nothing. I've been putting a fence. I've been making saddle racks. Like, I've been working farm work. Like, I don't have time to live the fire department outside the fire department. And that's okay. But when I'm at work, you got me and you got all of me.
Oh, a little John Legend,
you
huh?
all I got. But
Little
we're not
John
that,
Legend?
I don't know.
with
Is that a
me?
thing? I don't know. I'm sorry, Freddie. I don't know.
No, so
Not a thing. Not a thing for me. But we're not that, break down every door. You got to pull 600 feet of hose every day. Like, that's not, no.
so
on,
that
man.
the message came
So that's not back into what
on
I'm saying.
TikTok
But
from Fire181, and he's been a follower, a commenter of all of us and the podcast for a long time. Like, I always see him popping up. And Matt sent a message, said, "Hey, appreciate your comments on our post. We strive for authenticity, so thank you very much. It means a lot to us that people do reach out to us and say things, good and bad.
it does, man.
If you can't take constructive criticism, then where are you at in this life?" So Matt, I thought, did a really good job of reaching out to him, and his response was really cool. No, brother, thank you for doing what you guys do. A lot of the other podcasts, without talking bad, but a lot of the other podcasts are full of chest-beating, proud fireman shit. He said, which I enjoy, but when I listen to you guys, I really feel like I'm at the kitchen table solving the world's problems, learning how different parts of the country operate and anything in between. I truly enjoy what you guys are doing and doing it for the right reasons. Which
And isn't that what we do?
is
really more than one way is going to get
important, I think, because like I said earlier, our group chat started out with just us talking about our days and stuff we were running into at work. And you had Matt being like, you have to deal with that. Like, that's nothing I've ever had to deal with. Or, Doug saying like, oh man, we dealt with that years ago and we solved that problem. I can't believe that that's actually something that you guys are starting to deal with now. And so it's fun for me to see how a lot of this stuff is cyclical across the country. Stuff that my department is going through right now in a small microcosm, I actually dealt with at my previous department. A lot of the stuff that we're going through, it's like, oh my God, I know the answer. We did this already, and the same with when we talk to Unky or we talk to Brian or Nick or Matt or Doug or me or whatever. We all have these, maybe not same, but we have the same things that are going on. And that's why every once in a while we like to jump on here and just be like, what's going on? What's the big topic on your department right now? Because again, your department, those of you that are listening, you may have solved that problem. So we'd love for you to jump on and say like, hey, we had that problem and this is the route that we took. Because that might be something that we don't even think about. Because a lot of these problems aren't necessarily regional. They happen everywhere. There's just regional solutions. And sometimes the California solution might be awesome for Virginia, and they never even thought about it.
Yeah. That's where I was going to jump in to say, I think what sets us apart from the pound your chest guys is the fact that the humility and the fact that we're so spread out. We span from the West Coast to the East Coast to the Southeast to the
we're
y'all
Midwest.
Consider yourself Midwest, Freddie? I don't know. The North. I mean, but you guys are like bordering Canada, so like either way, the broad expanse that we have, and like you said, the difference in what one department may be doing right now. Maybe they're more forward thinking, or maybe they just not to pound my chest, but the size of my department, we may run into something sooner than a smaller department and say, well, hey, look, how do we fix that? Hey, matter of fact, Freddie, you just asked us today. Hey, look, guys, we're doing we're switching or not switching, but whatever about your station pants. Like, what are you guys doing now? Granted, that may be something that we addressed 6 or 7 years ago because of supply chain issues. We all know that COVID affected that, and I think we've changed vendors a couple times. But that, I think, is what sets us apart, is that we're so spread out and we're so diverse in the size of our departments. And not only that, in our job duties. Matt's a boss man. Brian is boss man in the fire marshal's office. Unky's government now, for Nick's government, but whatever. But like, and Freddie, you said 5 square miles is your size of your district or whatever. Like, we're so diverse, and I think that's what sets us apart and makes us that not pound your chest, real time or real life, relatable. That's a good word. Fire department podcast, because you could.
I think it's
throw a
hard.
dart
I
and
think
get a fire
it's
department
hard
podcast.
for us to be able to find somebody out, and I hope somebody proves us wrong. I think it's going to be hard to find somebody that we don't check one box for them. Small town, big city, federal. They're a boss. They're a pipeman. They're volunteer.
Right.
They're
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like, we're so diverse. Like, we touch so many different people nationwide and even national or globally, rather, because we had that guy from
no
where's he from,
unwanted touching.
Matt?
We touch the people that want us to.
No, dummy. Where was that guy from? That, oh God,
Which one are you talking about?
Central America? Was he?
Portugal.
You're talking about Portugal.
Portugal, yeah. Like, again, like you said, Freddie, we have our toes in so many different sizes and demographic regions. Like, it makes sense for people to, I don't want to toot our horn, but like, for people to listen to us and people relate to us for that. Again, relatable.
Yeah. I mean, we're bringing up everyday problems, just like the guy on TikTok said. We don't know his first name. I would love to know his first name. That way we could, talk about him, or even get him on here. But it's just a good all around podcast. We talk about a whole bunch of different things, but and again, that's the essence of the virtual coffee table. And so today I was like,
kitchen, stop saying coffee.
Kitchen table, whatever.
Is my gain better? I turned my gain down. Is that better?
No, you need to get away. You're very loud. The
I'm
ladies
guessing.
and gentlemen,
I'm guessing his name is
listeners.
Rusty.
Yeah, you do.
Yep, because his
Oh, really?
Rusty. His TikTok username is Fireman Rusty, and maybe, and his thing is making the fire service a better place. I like that. So, Rusty, you are getting a shout out this week. Shout out.
Massive, because it's true. He brought up authenticity, which brings me back to the word that Doug used, which is humility. And I mean, the essence of a good leader, in my opinion, is a couple things, but two of the bigger things are one person that wants to go in there and make the people around them laterally better, or beneath them better than you. You're selfless, and then that you bring humility to the table here, like that you don't come in pounding your chest. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Try to make people feel stupid, at the same time. But so I don't know. Doug Starling.
Elon, son of a gun.
This is impossible.
He'll
It's
be back.
impossible. Doug just dropped off.
I think.
My goodness.
Oh, 100%.
But you feel
100%.
me?
And,
You
and
feel
I
me
think
on that?
one thing
But anyways,
that's super important too, and I'm trying. You can't hear me? Oh, okay. One thing that I'm trying to do is be better about is consistency, that we are putting out an episode every week. And I'd love to hear from some people out there that are listening. If you want to, if you're not driving, comment on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts or whatever you're listening to it on, is like why you listen to us, because we enjoy it, because we're a part of it. And there are some times that I know that when I listen back to it on Fridays, I'm like, man, I really hope somebody's still here because I feel like you've got to really like us to stay this long into the podcast. But I hope so, because I hope people are able to use it as something when they're driving or when they're, doing things. Believe me, I use podcasts myself as background noise when I'm doing chores at the fire department, or I'm driving, or, you know, chores around the house or whatever. I don't know that I've ever really sat down and like 1000% focused on a podcast, like heard every word and analyzed it and stuff. When I'm listening, there's a lot of times that I'm hearing it. It's kind of in the back. And if I hear something that interests or clicks, or I'll rewind it about a minute and then I'll actually listen to it and stuff like that. And I burn through a lot of podcasts that way. I really like Firefighter Toolbox podcast. He has a lot of guests on there and they talk about tactics and stuff like that. There's a bunch. I listen to some youth baseball podcasts. Just
I mean, it's like that ain't about anything though, Fred, because I try to start listening to more leadership books through Audible and stuff. And if you're in your vehicle like I am most of the time, you're either driving to work or driving home, it's if you're not sitting there taking notes. I mean, my comprehension is just not that great. It's one of my weaknesses, let's say. And I would love to remember everything that Simon Sinek says, or any whoever, Malcolm Gladwell, or whoever I'm listening to, because they have such good points. And I'll sit there and I'm driving, so I'll try to dictate to my notes and try to remember stuff. I have a whole notes subject that says leadership, and I try to jot down some stuff. And
I think
I'll
go
read through
I
it
go
every
on about
once
a
in a while,
6-month rotation where I'll fire back up Verbal Judo, like that audiobook, and The Subtle Art of Not
Yeah.
Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
I really like those because
Yeah.
if
Right.
we're gonna draw back the curtain, if you're into it this far, if you've been following us for a long time, I have a real hard problem with just accepting other people's opinion of me. I have a hard problem with it. I wish I could be like, you know what, this is me, like me or not, it is what it is. But I strive to have a positive interaction with anybody that I come across in life, because for whatever reason, deep down in my soul, I would hate for someone to say something negative about me somewhere down the line. And I absolutely can't control that, but it still affects the shit out of me, and it bugs me, and I work on it and whatever. But the subtle art of not giving a fuck, and the verbal judo and stuff like that, it really helps to, like, hey, I'm not going to change for you. This is who I am. And there's been a lot of trials and tribulations that have gotten me to where I am today. And your opinion of me is just that. It's your opinion. So
Sure. Yeah. And don't let those people fool you that say
and
that they don't care, because
it's a
they really
coping
do.
mechanism, I think.
It all comes down to it. Sure. And it all comes down to how they choose to deal with it. Right. And if they want to do this, and puff their chest up and say, I don't give a shit what people say about me. I just think it's a human trait to actually.
It might actually
care
be
about what
worse,
people,
because those
think
people
about you.
are lying to themselves and hiding it.
But I think that you are right. There's degrees. There's degrees of, how people take it. Some people, and it's just all a personality thing. Maybe it's the stars. I don't know. People talk about, the different signs and, astronomy and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's part of it. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's why the five of us came together and started this podcast, because we all have similar interests and similar personalities. And not to say that that's even really a good thing, because that doesn't really create, and I wouldn't say that Brian and I are opposites or anything, but we
where
had
you
a good
disagreed.
discussion, a
Absolutely.
conversation, and it got a little like right, but we were totally okay with it. You know what I mean? And we posted on social media, and we put ourselves out there, and that's like one of the biggest things is when you're not, and especially in the fire service and the personalities there in the fire service. If you're trying to do something on the side and it has something to do with social media and you're not successful with it, and I'll just use Nick as an example for a second because Nick is extremely successful with it, right? And so I'm sure his guys or girls, whoever it is, look at him and they're like, "Damn, what do you like? How much money are you making on the side? How did you be successful?" Whereas for us, we have a small following on a small podcast. I get every once in a while, how's the podcast going? And general interest in it, but they know that we're not making any money on it. And it's just viewed differently. And so at the same time, we're putting ourselves out there. I mean, we're like what we're saying right now is going on to the internet forever. You know what I mean? And what we're doing, and I'll kind of circle back as to why we're doing that. And it's for the community. It's for the community that we've gained through social media. And we've talked about this before, how all social media, the stigma of it is, teenagers dancing around. That's what TikTok's all about because it started with trends and the 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 year olds and beyond dance into songs. And that's kind of the stigma of TikTok. But at the same time, like there's awesome, like
Yeah.
we all kind of came together as like a cooking community, if you will, and now obviously we're all firefighters. And so we have that in common. But there's such good, awesome, like um, humble communities that you can be a part of on social media that makes it all worth it. And I do this because I truly believe that we can make a difference. There's a possibility. And look, we want to create conversation all across the country and the world. We've done that. And B, we want to give back. And the way we do that is by starting conversation, helping people, and also monetarily. Like we've done two different fundraisers. We've been able to raise about $2,600 for two different benefits. It's not that's
beans.
I mean,
Yeah,
at the end
small
of the
beans.
day, like that's nothing. It's nothing. It's small beans, but it's the intention.
It's the
we're
thought
being
that counts.
intentional about wanting to help people, and that's what we're trying to do.
We
It's the
thought
that
about
counts,
donating more.
exactly. It's the thought that counts. Yeah. So we're about halfway, if not more, through this podcast already. Let's just circle back real quick to what we intended on kind of talking about. And we've wanted to make this a virtual kitchen table, as Doug would say, not coffee table. And that is a very important place in the firehouse. We sit around and we say, sometimes we say things that people wouldn't actually say to an individual's face, if you will, right? It's the place to kind of gripe. Some people in my department call it the treason table sometimes because, it could be negative comments about whoever,
It's
upper
whoever's not
brass,
in the room.
people below you. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, well, and that was my next point was sometimes you're afraid when we're all sitting around, you got 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people around the coffee table or the kitchen table. And you're like, oh man, if I get up to go to the bathroom right now, I might be the victim of the conversation. You know what I mean? And so I'm just here to say that it's never going away. That's never going away. Can you try to bridge the gap between the kitchen table and the person that you have the gripe with? Absolutely. And at the kitchen table, you might get some advice on how to deal with certain individuals from other individuals, and which is awesome advice usually because it gives you a outside looking in type of perspective when you're sitting at the table and you're all having these conversations and you decide to air some dirty laundry or you decide to give a little bit of a gripe and they say, "Hey, have you thought about it like this?" Those are healthy conversations and needed in the firehouse. We've talked about I've talked about how what I missed when I was off on my heart injury. I missed the in cab conversations. It's like therapy for us. We're with each other for 24 hours, if not longer, and we have a special bond, it's not like maybe someone that works in a cubicle and maybe talk to a colleague every couple hours at the water cooler they might have. That might be their little place to gripe. But I really missed that. And when I got back to it, I told the guys, I'm like, man, this is what I really missed, is this in cab, jaw jacking, talking, whatever it might have been about.
Right.
I mean, the people that are listening to this know exactly.
So
what I'm talking about,
my
we don't need to
department
get
is not a
into the
department that our
nitty-gritty.
chiefs usually eat meals with us. There are some that do. Ours just typically don't. Last night, our chief needed to stay over because he had a late meeting. He had a commission meeting. He was putting forth. We're trying to get a new ambulance. It got approved. We're spending over $500,000 for a new ambulance. It'll be delivered February of 26, which consequently is around the same time that our new ladder truck is also getting delivered. So that was a heck of a thing. But so last night he said, hey, is there any chance I can buy into dinner? Can I eat dinner with you guys? Because I'm gonna go to this commission meeting and then I'm gonna come back and rack out in one of the empty racks, because they usually start their day at 6 a.m. And so he's like, if I'm going to be here till 10:45 at night, it's silly for me to just whatever. So we're like, yeah, absolutely. And so we're all sitting there eating dinner. There's the normal 6 of us. And then our fire chief, number one, and we're sitting there, and I'll be honest with you, nobody was nervous. Nobody was different, because it was almost as if hey man, you're on our turf now, so we're not changing for you. And we started razzing each other, and guys were getting in each other's shit. And one of the side dishes for dinner was guacamole, and somebody spilled some on the table. And one of the guys is like, what's all this guacamole doing all over the table? And the guy sitting next to me, he's like, I don't know, clean it up. So the guy grabbed a napkin, took a big old scoop of the guacamole from the table. And the guy that was joking with him, hey, why don't you clean it up? He's got a bald head. He shaves his head. So the guy that cleaned it up went whap right on his head, and guacamole just flew everywhere, from his head or whatever. And we're laughing, and we're just, like I said, ripping on each other and whatever. And our chief at one point, he was just like, you know what? I miss the hell out of this. He goes, I have not had this in 6 years. He goes, I don't get this at home. He's like, this is a different type of dinner. He goes, and this is so good for my soul. And it was something that he said, and we kind of razzed him a little bit when he's like, oh, it's good for your soul, huh? Are you gonna write a book about it? And I'm pretty sure after the fact, everybody kind of sat and thought about it. It was twofold of, we kind of take for granted what we have around the kitchen table, because our chief hadn't had that for 6 years. And when he was able to get that little bit of it back, it made him feel good. He was in a horrible mood all day. And when he ate dinner with us, he walked out of that room just beaming. He was happy. And second, it is its own animal. It is its own microcosm. It's not something that you can recreate. Even when a bunch of us go out to a bar off shift, I still think it's different than that on shift meal at the firehouse, sitting around the kitchen table. You finished eating 25 minutes ago, and you're just sitting there still cracking jokes or still talking about whatever and solving all those problems that A, don't need to be solved, or B, we're not solving them correctly, or at least based on how the city would want us to solve. We're like, oh, you know what? We got a staffing problem. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. And then, if the city ever heard that, they'd be like, no, that does not make any sense. we're not going to do that. Like, we're like, oh, you guys are paying like $300,000 in overtime every year. We should hire 7 more guys. Then there'll be no overtime. And the city's like, no, that's like $1 million if we hire 7 guys. We'd rather pay the $300,000 in overtime.
Right.
But
right.
it was definitely, for me, it was eye-opening that he was like, it's so good. It's so good just to have that back, even if it's for a brief moment. And
no. We
you're
had
good, you're good. I was just gonna fill.
Sorry, I cut you off, I think. But I was just gonna say I commend your chief. We're gonna have people that listen to this episode and they're gonna be like, God dang, we would never have a chief at our dinner table, right? Or if we did, we would, grin and bear it, because it's just gonna be
You'd
2
hear
hours
like that Saturday Night Live
of solid
episode where
hell.
they're clanking on the plates with the silverware and nobody's really saying anything. And then somebody, I drive a Dodge Stratus.
Yes. But, and I don't know if this is the right word, but I'll commend your chief for doing that and for allowing you, for you guys to allow him to do that. Because it's a good way, and I keep using this stupid phrase, but it's a good way to bridge, you know what I mean? Because we've talked about this before, and I 100% think it's truth. And so the chiefs that are listening out there, and I wish Brian was here to corroborate this, because I really think he would. The fact that as soon as you put on that black with the gold brass on your collars, there is a disconnect between how you used to operate when you worked on an engine than you do now, either sitting at a desk or running in the buggy. There really is. And I have to attribute it, if I'm going to float out and have a out of body experience and look from 30,000 feet down, it's because they got different priorities now. They got different priorities, and whether they're 9 to 5 now as a chief, or they still work 24-hour shifts on a buggy on a shift, they got different priorities. They got a different boss. They've got responsibilities that, we like what you said. The staffing issue, that's easy. I could solve that in 2 seconds, right? But you sit down with city personnel or the fire chief, and you actually have a real conversation about it, and they go, it doesn't work because of this, this, and this, A, B, and C. I'll give you 15 different reasons why whatever you just said doesn't work. But of course, the kitchen table is where we can solve all those damn problems. But I don't know. I commend. And what I was going to say next was, we've had a couple of our battalion chiefs come and have brunch with us on a weekend, and I think that's 100% legit. I think it's fine. Come sit down at the
So
brunch
your
table
battalion chiefs
anytime
don't
that you
usually
want.
eat with you?
It's just a nub.
Okay.
No,
So
no,
there's
they
another
don't.
difference. Like our
no, they
our
don't. No.
shift consists of a battalion chief and a lieutenant at Station 1 with 4 firefighters. And then at Station 2 is a lieutenant with 3 firefighters. So our battalion chief rides around with a firefighter, a paramedic. If there is a lieutenant, we got to have 1 officer at each station. If there is a lieutenant on, then he rides the ladder. If there's not, like, I drove my battalion chief around yesterday in the mini pumper, and we were first due for medicals with the ambulance. And that's just the way to do it. So that's weird for me that you were like, yeah, sometimes our battalion chief, like for us, battalion chief has a chair. He's the head of the table. He's always sitting there. And it's funny when the battalion chief is off and there's maybe just a lieutenant, because you always see they move their chair like to the left or to the right of center at the head of the table, because they almost like don't. This ain't me. I ain't the bad. I'm just I'm a spot holder. I'm not the dude.
Yeah, our battalion chiefs they have a room at one of our stations, and they can be in whenever they want. They just say, hey, are you cool if I'm in for lunch or dinner? But typically, normally they would do their own thing. They do their own thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But very often they'll ask a certain station, typically the station they're at, to buy in for lunch or dinner. and they it's just they're part of the crew, and it doesn't always have to be, hey, what questions do you have? Hey, what you say that you want more communication.
So do you think it's good, or do you think that muddies the water that they're if they're there eating all the time?
No, I think it's totally fine at that station. They're out of our station 2. That's where they're housed. They work 24-hour shifts on a shift schedule, just like we do. And so that particular chief, if he asked me, and let's say I'm doing overtime at that station, that's not my typical station. But if I'm doing overtime there and he asked me, hey, can I be in for lunch
Yeah.
and dinner? Like, that would be totally normal for me. And we would just count him in like he's one of the guys, 100%. To be honest with you, if he asks me and I'm at my normal station, which is station 1, and he says, "Hey, can I be in for lunch?" That to me is like, "Hey, let's the chief's coming over for lunch. Obviously count him in. Let's get him some food." And then it's like, "Hey, if anybody's got questions,
that's
anybody's
kinda
got
why
some
he's
rumors they
doing
want to
it
clear up,
type
or
thing?
that
That's
to
his
me
that's
is
his community outreach, if you will.
yes. Yes.
I'm a
and
No, that's
yeah, and I think it's
well, and
great.
it is that
I think it's
laid
great.
back atmosphere.
This is what I'll tell you is
Yeah,
let me just finish this part. This is what I don't really think is great, is when the Chiefs hear a regular medical aid go out and they attach themselves to it. I just not, we're going to run the call. Like, you're not on the medical aid. It's sure, if it's a battalion chief level call, then great. Like, for instance, yesterday, I get to work. We just about to start our workout, and bing, 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 a baby not breathing goes out. And so I didn't think anything of it, right? We just run the call. We get there, whatever. We run the call. It wasn't a baby not breathing. It was a seizure. But at the end of the day, I talked to my chief about it. I say, "You hear that call go out?" And he goes, "Yeah, I almost attached myself to it."
Don't do
And my
that.
initial thought, and I'll be perfectly
Right.
honest, was like, don't do that. But he enlightened me a little bit. He goes, "Dude, I would have been on scene to help with the family just in case if it was a baby not breathing, let's say the baby didn't make it, I can get our trauma intervention program, the tip people involved. I can help with the family. I can give them guidance while you guys are handling the patient, because that's the most important thing. I can be kind of on the outskirts of the call helping." And I was like, you know what? You're 100% right. And in fact, as actually another captain on a different shift that I had brought that up, and he brought those points to me, and I was like, you make a good point, dude. You make a great point. And so there's always things that
You got to see the other side of it too, though. Some of those line guys are going to be like, "Man, why is Chief freaking micromanaging us? Like, what?"
and you know what they say. You know what they say. What they're saying back around the kitchen table, we'll bring it back full circle again, is he's just there to see if we're in uniform. He's just there to make sure that we're following this and that. And
Well, and
he's there to
to
nitpick,
put a
and that's not good. That's not good, right? Let the captains let the captains
well, to put a bow on it
handle that
is
kind of stuff.
you've got to demonstrate your leadership style so that that's not something that your crew is thinking. Why is Chief showing up? Did we do something wrong? It needs to be like, "Oh shit! All right, he wants to help us out. He's here to help. He's not here to micromanage us, or he's not here to make sure that I shaved this morning and not last night, or whatever it is, right? Because
Oh, the only thing I was gonna interject was, you might be able to do that to a guy that's been on for 2, 3, 4 years, but after that, you're not gonna
what's
change
that?
their opinion on that kind of stuff.
Why
You
is
know what I
Chief
mean?
showing up?
An 8-year, yeah, oh yeah, they're gonna have their preconceived notions, and they're not, and that's just that is what it is. But you got a new guy who's super impressionable and moldable, and you say, "Hey, listen, right? The chief's here to handle that kind of the family on these important calls if they add themselves to it, you know." But I just don't think that the guys that have run enough calls in their career that they're gonna say that
Yeah,
it's a
I
good
mean,
thing that the chief shows
same
up.
Chief that had dinner with us the other night. We dropped 7 medicals, well, 7 calls within 22 minutes of each other one day. And we had mutual aid
Oh, wow.
companies coming.
Yeah.
We were splitting trucks because we usually send like an engine and a rescue to one call. And we just start dropping calls so that our battalion chief was on the radio, and he's like, engine 2, break off from that call, take this. Squad 1, break off, take the, they're just trying to spread us out to figure out, okay, what needs to get transported, what's a sign off, what's a fire alarm, what's an odor investigation, what's a this, what's a that. And the assistant chief and the chief were hearing all the traffic, obviously, at the station, and they jumped onto a truck, and they're like, hey, Rescue 3 is staffed and available, and we'll respond to the middle school, which happened to be a call that I was going to with the ambulance for a teenager that had a seizure, no history. So they attached themselves to that. And while I was super appreciative, the unfortunate part is they're not on the trucks, so they don't know where everything is in the jump bag, and they don't know. Like, there's a lot of things where it's like, hey, what do you need? It's like, okay, I need to take a blood sugar. It's like, okay, where is that? And they're opening up every compartment. It's like, okay, stop. I got it. And then it's like, okay, what do you do now? It's like, I'm going to throw them on the monitor. Okay, well, where are the electrodes? And it's, okay, I'll do it. Like, they are so desperate. They want to help. But the problem is they have other things that are now their priority that they are not completely up on the trucks and the bags and the protocols. I take it back. The protocols they're up on, we all stay current with our medic license and protocols and stuff like that. They sit in on trainings all the time, but I digress. But
Sure. Right. I understand. And so, I can speak to my department and all 3 of our battalion chiefs. They could run a call and just like as if they were a captain again. They know. I mean, I would have confidence that if a battalion chief showed up and I said, hey, I need a blood sugar, they'd know exactly where the glucometer is. You know what I mean? And I would have no problem giving them that task. Hey, put a blood pressure cuff on. We need to get a set of vials. So that's the cool thing. You know what I mean? But I know we're kind of
it's what happens. It's what happens
here.
at the table. You start talking about football, and all of a sudden you're, talking about how come overtime, come 3 people are getting ordered on Christmas. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. And so I'll sit here and tell you that it's not a bad thing if your chief that's not normally sitting at your table for a meal is a bad thing. It's just not a bad thing. It's a good way to bridge communication. It's a way to smash some rumors, have questions. And it's not the easiest always, when you have somebody show up unannounced even, and they're like, hey, what's going on, guys? And you give handshakes and it's like, hey, what you guys want to know what's going on? And we're like, well, yeah, of course we want to know what's going on. But in that moment, sometimes it's difficult to kind of come up because you're kind of the hamster in your brain is starting to run in circles. And you're like, what do I need to know? What do I want to know? And it's not like all of us without the chief sitting at that kitchen table, coming up with topics and being able to speak more freely. I would believe, I mean, it doesn't, and it's not even all about the chiefs. It's rarely is it about the chiefs. It's just about, others and how their operations are going and all that kind of stuff that you're going to start talking about. And it's all some of it. I mean, I don't know what kind of percentage. 70% of it is probably just bullshit, like bullshit dudes. Nick said it during his little recap when he came on, I don't know what, 5-10 episodes ago. And he says, when I asked him, I said, hey, how's it going? How's the new department going? He goes, it's great. Like everybody wants to come to work and, but you know what? Everybody bitches and complains because we got 48 hours. We got to run our mouths about something. You know what I mean? And that's a part of it. That's 100% a part of it is that we just got too much time sometimes when we're staring at each other in the face. We got to say something. So why not bring up something, controversial? Right. And
this
we'll
just came to my mind. I think it's probably the truest.
It goes.
If you ever, and this is everybody in the world, if you ever think that you have the best idea or the best product or something that's like perfect, drop it off at a fire station and stop back 24 hours later and we'll tell you everything that's wrong with it. this is the perfect thing. It makes perpetual energy, and it actually puts money into your bank account. And when you picked it up the next day, you'd be like, dude, it's gray. It should be blue. Like, what? It should have Bluetooth. Like, we will absolutely find something. And I think it's because of our nature of we're problem solver. So if we do see something that is quote unquote perfect or looks good, we're gonna probably try and dissect it and be like, can we make it better? Or is there something in here we can fix?
Oh yeah. Ultimate critical thinkers. And if you're not, somebody will be for you. I mean, that's just the way it is in the fire service. Somebody has to be, because like you said, we're problem solvers and we've got nothing but problems to solve all day long, whether people are calling 911 or not. And so that's what we're there for. So it's all good. But I love the table. I've always been a habitual, what we call overtimer in the mornings. I'll stay, longer. It takes me an hour to get home even, but our shift changed at 7. I'm very rarely out of work by 8:00, 8:30. I love to sit over and, hey, how's your shift going? Hey, how's life? Like, how are the kids? I'll sit there with multiple cups of coffee until I'm like, okay, I got an hour drive home. I got to go. But I've just always been that way. And it's not like I crave information but it's always nice to get a pulse on like what's going on and what other people know, because I don't know everything. I like to listen to the calls that they were on yesterday because I learned something. I mean, that's like legitimately what I'm there for. Is when we're talking about calls, I'm like, how would I have handled that? And maybe the way that they handle it, I'm like, man, that's actually a good idea. So there's so much greatness that happens at that gosh darn table. And our podcast, whether you want to call it the Cool Fireman Podcast or the average fireman podcast, whatever, that's what it embodies is this
where we can check in. This is a shift for us.
We can just,
it's like a shift.
Bring up conversations. Yeah. So it's all good. But dude, I think that everybody that's listening to the podcast, I mean, it's an engaging conversation. This one is like what people think about it. And there's a lot of controversial things that we talked about having chiefs at the dinner table or the lunch table, the brunch, whether that you want them to come on calls or all that kind of stuff. So if you got comments on how your departments do it, please engage with us. We said it on the last podcast that we try to read and if not, comment back on almost all of our comments. I mean, granted, we don't get too many, which is fine. But we are really legitimately trying to start a conversation.
We got lists of topics
that's what we're here for,
that we can cover. But ideally, this podcast is your guys' podcast.
Yeah.
Like, we want to cover the stuff that you want to listen to. So, throw ideas out there. There's probably stuff that maybe we've touched on that we could make a whole episode out of, or are there people you want to hear from? Like, do you have somebody that you follow that you want to hear more of or what have you? Cause we love interacting with new people. That's the whole point of this too, is inviting new people to the kitchen table. It doesn't have to be just the 5 of us. Like, we love bringing new people in and hearing cool stories.
Yeah. So that's all great stuff. It's all great stuff. And there was something else I was going to bring up and I totally forgot what it was, but that's okay. For next time. But hey, let's not forget. We're going to do a quick moment of silence. It's just you and
Elon,
I. It sounds like
Elon messed up his internet.
Starlink didn't do Doug very well. Yeah. So we're going to do a quick moment of silence for all those brothers and sisters that we lost over the last week in the fire service.
I just want to point out,
well said.
Those of you that are watching on the video, forget that team that comes out of Texas that plays at AT&T Stadium. They are not America's team. Right here, the Lions. The Lions are America's team now. They are rolling. Rolling.
We're not here to get political. 100% we're not. But I'm going to say that the certain individual that might be president-elect might
We're
make
not talking
Detroit
about this.
great again.
Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is making Detroit
I love
great.
you. I love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, and I'll second that. I will cooperate that. Yeah, 100%. All right, boys and girls. I'm going to let Freddy do the honors tonight, but what I will say is we love you all, and please engage on the best thing that could ever happen to us is that people send us an email at thecoolfireman@gmail.com and give us some constructive criticism and give us some ideas of what you want to listen to, because we do really have a following. It's not huge, but it's big enough to where we can get some people that could really help us out and let us know how we're doing. And if we can make a big change, that's going to
what we
really help
want.
us reach more people. Hey, by all means.
Roll it, Gigi. Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!